Yes, it has come to this. It comes to us all. So Director for Net Zero, I know what you're thinking. What's he doing in a room full of technical experts with construction and energy? And it is an unusual title because it's a new job and I'm trying to shape it so that it means something, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Is that a couple of my good friends in the room, Stephen Boyle from Cerebia Scotland, Neil Kitchen, we've been, it's fair to say we've been around, isn't it, right? I'm 60, I've worked in so many different parts of Scotland's sectors, and everyone I'm in says the same thing. Somebody should do something about climate change. And I get fed up with that. I thought, well, why don't we do something about climate change? And why don't we try and change the narrative for who do we find to blame for climate change to who do we find to partner with to solve the problems? And how do we take the combat out of this complicated challenge of our time? How do we take the existential threat that we all face and turn it into the greatest economic opportunity of our time? And it sounds flippant to say that when you're in a world of volatility and complexity, ambiguity and confusion. Add to that COVID, Brexit, neither say more. And before you know it, you've got businesses on their knees wondering what's going on, shock after shock after shock. And then all of a sudden, net zero comes along, and I can almost put myself in the room with people going, what is this nonsense all about? Is this yet another government soundbite? Is this going to be something else that's going to confuse us? Is it going to be expensive? And my customer's going to beat me up because I haven't got it? It's just too complex and too confusing, and it's up to us in this room. I've heard today a word quite a lot about collaboration. I think it was the one thing we used to do as a nation was outstanding, was the collaboration. We kind of lost our way a bit, and we got a bit fragmented. I'll explain what I mean by that. I don't mean it to be controversial, but I kind of do. What you'll also notice is that I'm not a professional public speaker. Spoiler alert. I'm just an ordinary bloke working in a difficult environment, trying to get stuff done. And sometimes I feel like, and you'll all feel the same, we're practitioners of the environment. Sustainability is a word I detest, but I'll come back to that. And we sometimes feel that our initiatives and our ideas are square pegs, and Scotland's economy is looking for it's got round holes in it. And it's a constant battle trying to get this great idea that's going to save the planet, it's going to solve problems, it's going to grow our economy, and you're faced time and time again with computer says no. It's difficult and it's challenging, but we have to change our attitude. So this is my big proposition. I don't do presentations. When Kelly first invited me, I thought, you must be off your head inviting me. I like to kind of poke sticks at things and check things, so I'm a bit of a provocateur, a bit of a disruptor, because the first thing I always think is there's got to be an easier way to do this. There's got to be a better way we can change who we are and what we do and what we stand for, because by the way, we gave the world fair proportion of the Industrial Revolution. We also gave it the current wonky economic system. So it's payback time. So what Scotland needs to do, what you need to do, what we need to do is change how we think about environment. It isn't just a sustainability issue. God help us. If we view big, innovative opportunities as a compliance issue, game over. We'd be as well just wrapping up and leaving, because it is not going to take us forward. It's going to keep us where we are and stop things getting worse. So there's something about our approach for sustainability. It isn't the side dish to an economic main course. We have to weave sustainability into everything we do, but we have to sell it from a point of opportunity, from a vantage point of an economy, from a vantage point of why would you not want to be involved in an era at a time when the world's got its greatest need, with just 7.5 years to do something that's never been done in any country ever? Why would that not excite you? I'd really love to find out and get into the psyche of people why that sort of thing wouldn't excite you. It's the coolest thing ever to be involved in this space at this time, doing the stuff you do. And I heard a lot today about the framework, but what sits behind all that is an attitude. The attitude of somebody needs to do something about climate change. Who do we blame? You saw that at COP26. There was a bunch of young people, including myself in this, who were all activists and they were going, right, placards, somebody needs to do something. I'm thinking, so that's good and it's useful and I encourage it. But can we have actionists? I just made the word up there, so we can, I'll name that, stick it in Wikipedia, actionist. Can we have actionists? Can we have people saying, you're not doing enough, but this is what we'll do? So there's the next phase of our endeavour as Scotland, as Team Scotland. We need to shift from that combative environment, which, by the way, didn't work. We discovered this spinning planet out of control of ours has got a very, very short shelf life, caused by us and our attitude and our way of life. We can either choose to go back and live in caves, don't fancy that, or we can innovate ourselves into a prosperous space. I like the sounds of that. And how do we do that? We've just heard about our phenomenal colleges, our fantastic agencies like Zero Waste Scotland, Scottish Enterprise, Highland and Island Enterprise, my own organisation. We're this family, we're this team Scotland. But I've got to be honest with you, it'd be Barcelona or Beacon City, right? So there's something about being a team, but being a really successful, really productive, relentless, fearless team, that is where we need to be. And I've been to too many of events like this where it's all, that's fantastic, I love it, I get it, fantastic. But what would be really amazing is that you take even a fraction of what I'm saying and say, ask yourself the question when you come to your retirement and you're sitting, we were chatting about being on Arran, weren't we? Sitting at Kildonan with a single malt, listening to the oyster catchers and the curlews, and pretending that we didn't do enough that we should have done. I certainly don't want to be in that place. I want to be exhausted because I tried my best to get stuff done. And you don't get stuff done with placards and telling people they're bad. That's why you heard a lot about a just transition to net zero. So the just transition part, people will say, what is it? So I'll define what an unjust transition is. It's what we did to the coal sector. In the 70s, we went, we don't like you, you can leave. They did. But unfortunately, when they left, social, economic, environmental decline, the likes of which we've never seen before. Drive around a former coal town, you'll know what I'm talking about. I grew up in one. And it isn't just about the jobs and the economy, because that splits the crowd. It's about the culture. It's about your personality. It's about your family. And yet we discarded that because we didn't like something. Now that's cheap, nasty, and lazy. An innovative country would have thought through what we could do with the skills, with the expertise, with those hard-working, passionate people, with those communities, and we would have transitioned those skills into what we need rather than what we didn't need. So let's not do that again. We should make a note of that, shouldn't we? Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater ever again in Scotland. So when people want to fight with the oil and gas sector and the landfilling sector and all the rest of it, take a sharp, deep breath and think that one through. We need to transition skills, not abandon them. We need to be collaborative, not combative. We need to be optimistic and not outraged. Outrage just holds us back. It just keeps us at each other's neck. Yeah, Neil and I did a lot of venturing about COP26, and I think we said quite a lot at the time, hope mobilises, fear paralyses. All you hear about climate change, somebody Google it now, the word climate change, I bet you'll see a stranded panda or a polar bear somewhere. It does not connect with people. It doesn't resonate with people in Govan, with people in Sighthill, with people anywhere. So there's something about how do we make real the challenges that we all face, and how do we shift that challenge out of the somebody should do box to I'm going to do it. How do we do that? Well, guess what? It's your attitude. It's the mindset that this is something, an endeavour worth your skills and your expertise. It's an endeavour worth our children and our grandchildren are going to think, my mum and dad, or my dad and dad, or whoever it was, were working at the coalface, literally solving these problems, shaping up the future for me. Isn't that better than we deleted sectors because we didn't like their attitude or their outcomes? We need to be smarter than that. We need to be a Scotland that's united around the transition to net zero, and we need to be relentless. Now, by the way, it's not easy. Did I mention it's not easy? It's not going to be easy. But what wonderful was ever easy? Everything, even staying in a happy marriage, takes effort and time and compromise. This is going to require dedicated hard work. Having systems that you've got in Scotland Excel, having the fellowship of the willing that you've got, and I think this is probably more powerful than any framework you've got, is these people sitting here in this room with you right now. How do you mobilise these people to work collaboratively, solving problems, rather than doing what we've done for the last 50 years? 50 years. All we've done is, and we've all worked really hard, and we've all been really clever, and we've all written brilliant papers, and we've all really sweated blood and tears. Sad news is we're in a climate and nature crisis right now. We're in an economic crisis right now, and there's no sign of any of that going away. In fact, the tougher the economic crisis gets, you can guess what's going to happen. I'm looking at Stephen. He's already saying it out loud. The environment's going to get toughed in at the corner. So what we're actually doing is we're building that unjust transition that we've got to avoid. We are going to repeat history, only we're going to do it on a seismic scale, the likes of which we'll never recover from, nor will our children and our grandchildren. So this sounds all doom and gloom. It's not meant to, because what it's meant to do is have you inquisitive, be curious about what you do, how you do it, why you're doing it, who you're doing it with. Think about the optimism. Think about how do you mobilise people around opportunities rather than paralyse them around the complexities of tackling climate change? Sometimes it's even just doing one small thing at a time, and you'll get there. So in the South of Scotland enterprise, we're the newest economic agency of Scotland, and we're ever so slightly more evolved. And they were set up to be ever so slightly because we work with communities, and we're also, supposed to try and push the boundary, and try and do some tricky things because we've got complex businesses and we've got lots of SMEs in agriculture. So we can't just follow the model of our brothers and sisters in Scottish enterprise now. So we've got to think on our feet and be a bit creative. And that's good. That's what you would want, isn't it? So one of the things that we're doing is we're creating the UK's first just transition to net zero route map, which is why your framework is going to be so useful and so helpful. And I'm a novice on it, so I'm going to have to be speaking to Kelly quite a lot, which I love doing anyway, and try and discover more about how we can work with you, how we can get you down to the south of Scotland, help us build that capacity in the region, because if we don't do it, we're going to struggle. So what this route map will show is which sectors have to transition, in which sequence, in which order. That then also becomes an investment perspective. So if investors are out there, and by the way, they're out there in the tons. Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, was at COP26 and he brought a gang with him called GFANS. Sounds like Avengers Assemble, doesn't it? So the Glasgow Finance Alliance for Net Zero, and it was the last count, it was $138 trillion worth of investment. And these folk were on the eye for who has got solutions, who has got ideas, who's got the courage to have a punt, which part of the country, which business, which community group, which entrepreneur has got something to bring to the table. So they're constantly sniffing and looking for those big ideas. Can we give them to them, please? Because if we constantly focus on the small things and don't collaborate on the big things, we won't look attractive enough for that level of investment. So that's a big message for us. How do you, in Scotland Excel, build scalable, massive, big, exciting projects, and then we'll have a round table or whatever, and we'll get some of these investors here and get them to pitch to you. So there's lots and lots of money. And the funny thing is, COP26 was called the No Excuse COP. 25 before were abject failures. One of them was reasonably good, Paris. Maybe it was Paris and the romance, who knows. But Paris changed the language about COP. It wasn't about, what do you need to lose to address world climate change? And countries were told to change their economic systems, going, no for me, thanks. It's that classic old NIMBY. Not in my backyard. There's even a new term I heard the other day. Do you want to hear it? Banana. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. That's shocking, and that's people are now speaking about that. I'm sure the colleges aren't speaking about that because colleges are smart. But I actually heard a young person say banana. I'm thinking, what's that? And they told me, I nearly wept. I was like, can we not build the right thing in the right place for the right reason? It doesn't make an acronym, but never mind. So COP26 was supposed to be the big moment when Scotland and the UK showed the world that when everyone else was circling the wagons, we were the pioneers. When everyone else was on their knees for climate change, we were on our toes with ideas and solutions. When everyone else was looking to see who to blame, we were looking to see who to partner with. Did it go according to plan? 0-0 draw, I would say. It was all right. It wasn't horrific, but it certainly wasn't what it could have been. So I was a bit disappointed about that, but I'll go over it. But COP27 is around the corner in Egypt. And what we're going to do about that? How does Scotland sell who we are, what we do, how we do it, why we do it to the world? And it's organisations like you and the collective you've got, look round this room. This is an Avengers Assemble. If you could capture and coordinate the experience and expertise and the passion and ambition and the, did I mention, mindset in this room, you could do something spectacular and you could start to show the world how we do things in Scotland and why we're doing them. So my job in the South of Scotland enterprise is to take the economy and try and develop it in a way that doesn't conflict with the environment and nature. You might think, well, it's dead straightforward. Afraid not. It's difficult because most business growth comes with emissions. Has it been proved that you can actually decouple growth from emissions? Yes, but it's a tenuous scientific kind of stretch of the imagination. You really need to be quite an optimist to try and believe that. But here's a stat that's quite exciting, I would say. In the decade 2008 to 18, Scotland cut its emissions and grew its economy faster than any country in the G20. Just let that resonate for a minute. And this is on the back of us thinking we're too wee, too daft, not clever enough, not smart enough. Maybe somebody else can solve these problems and we can jump on their coattails. It's not going to work, never has worked, and it won't work. What we need now is the Scotland of the past. Now we need to be bold, we need to be creative, we need to be fearless, We need to be humble. We don't have all the answers, of course we don't, but we're going to be relentless until we get them. So there's something about this event and all of the events I end up speaking at, there's the common theme. The common theme is there's frameworks, there's strategies, there's policies, there's finance. What sits between all of that is your mindset, is your attitude. In a world of complexity and ambiguity, the one thing you can be certain of is you. So it's a kind of call to action, a plea, as it were, from an ordinary person working in a complex job to a lot of brilliant people working in a complex job, is that we can't sit back and watch things happen in front of us going, somebody needs to do something about that. That should be your call to go, and, I'm going to have a go. I'm going to provoke. I'm going to stick a wee stick in there and say, really, is that what we're looking for? Is that the outcome that doesn't sit with me? And Hugh and I, we want to be able to sit one day when we're much older, and that's not that far away, according to me, and feel good about all this hard work. I feel good about all the train journeys, and feel good about all the board meetings I've been at and all the papers you've had to write and read. I want to feel good that we did something. And I think if you all had that attitude and you conveyed it to the young and make them feel hopeful rather than fearful, I think what you'll start to see is you'll start to see a Scotland generate itself into a nation that's just sensational. I love this country passionately, and I would just love to see it stand up, look climate change in the eye, and kick its head in. I know it's a dreadful Glaswegian term, but there's something about the challenge in front of us is exciting. And the last thing I'll finish with is that we hear all the time about Climageddon and climate change, and it's a cliff edge. Isn't it any wonder why nobody wants to do climate change, really? Going to dance around about it and blame the system or blame their cousins or blame the other sector. Cliff edges are not exciting places. So let's change how we view climate change from a cliff edge to a mountain. Mountains are dangerous and perilous. We like climbing mountains. There's something about the higher the mountain, the more excited we get. So we need to shift our attitude ever so slightly as an individual, as a collective. And I think having a network like Scotland Excel, being part of Team Scotland, but a better team with higher ambition and greater productivity and a fearless, relentless attitude, and we will take on all comers and know we're not scared of anything, I think that's going to stand us in good stead for the future. So thank you for listening to my rants. It all comes from a place of well-meaning, and I think I've just started to get quite cynical in my old age, Stephen. Reached 60 last year. I know what you're thinking. Surely not. Thank you for that. And it dawned on me, for 40 years I've been kicking the tyres in Scotland. I've had it. I think it's time we really need to start challenging ourselves, first and foremost, because only by challenging ourselves will we be ever able to challenge the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin.